Princess stepped out of the transport ship and looked down at Earth for the first time. The planet was blue and green, with white clouds swirling across the sky. She had seen images and data about this world, but nothing prepared her for the feeling of actually standing here. The air was different. It was heavy and warm. It smelled strange. Her guards stood beside her in their dark uniforms, weapons at their sides. They looked uncomfortable. This was not the palace. This was not the empire. This was a primitive world where a human lived. The human's name was David Harper. He was 35 years old. He was a scientist, which meant something different on this world than it meant in the empire. He studied plants. That was his work. He spent his days in gardens and laboratories looking at how things grew, found this difficult to understand. In her world, plants were manufactured. They were grown in controlled environments. Nobody spent their entire life caring for them. But this was the marriage agreement. The treaty between Earth and the Empire required it. As the princess of the most powerful species in this region of space would marry a human representative. It was meant to show unity. It was meant to prove that the two civilizations could live together. Did not like it, but she was duty-bound to accept it. David Harper was waiting at the landing site. He stood alone, without guards or soldiers. He wore simple clothing, a gray shirt, dark pants, nothing fancy. Nothing that showed power or status. He looked very ordinary. He walked toward her slowly. He did not bow deeply the way the officials did. He simply put his hand on his chest and nodded. It was a human greeting. Had learned about it from her advisors. It meant respect but not submission. It meant he saw her as a person, not just a princess. "Welcome to Earth," David said. His voice was calm. "I know this is not easy. I am grateful you came." Studied him. He had light brown hair and brown eyes. He was tall for a human but still shorter than her. His face was not beautiful in the way faces were. It was weathered. It showed that he spent time outside. It showed that he worked with his hands. "The journey was adequate," said. She kept her voice formal. "I am here to fulfill the agreement." David nodded. He did not seem disappointed that she was not warm or friendly. He simply accepted it. "Of course. The ceremony is tomorrow. Tonight I thought you might want to rest. Your rooms are prepared." Was taken to a building near the research facility where David worked. The rooms were simple. There was a bed, a table, a window that looked out onto gardens. Everything was small compared to the palace, but it was clean. It was peaceful. She looked at the gardens below. David had told her that he had prepared them specially. He had grown flowers and plants that he thought she might like. Did not understand why he would do this. She was here to satisfy a political agreement. He was here to accept her. That was all. Why would he work to make her happy? The ceremony took place the next morning. The officials came from the ship. Humans from the local government came as well. They stood in a large room while David spoke the words that would bind them together. It was simple. There was no magic. There was no passion. It was just words, but the words were real. They were married now. After the ceremony, David took to see his laboratory. It was a large building filled with plants and equipment. The plants were everywhere, in pots, in tanks, growing on shelves, growing in the ground. The smell was strong and green, different from anything had known. "This is my life," David said. He moved between the plants carefully, checking them, touching their leaves gently. "I study how plants adapt, how they grow, how they survive in different environments." "Why?" asked. The question came out harder than she meant it to. "Because everything that lives needs plants to survive," David said. He looked at her directly. "Even need plants. You eat food. That food comes from something that grows. In the Empire, you manufacture everything. You control it completely. Here on Earth, we understand that we do not control nature. We work with it. We learn from it." Listened. She did not know what to say. His passion for plants seemed strange to her, but it was also real. He truly cared about these living things. That was unusual. In her experience, did not care about things. They used them. They controlled them, but they did not care. Over the next weeks, David continued his work, stayed in the rooms he had prepared for her. She did not have much to do. Her advisors told her to observe human culture, to learn their ways, but mostly she stayed in the rooms and looked out the windows. One evening, David invited her to have dinner with him. They sat at a table in his living space. He had cooked the food himself. It was simple. There was rice and vegetables and a piece of white fish. It was not fancy, but it tasted good. "I wanted to ask you something," David said. "Are you unhappy here? If there is something you need, I can arrange it." Considered the question. Was she unhappy? She did not know. She was not happy, but she was not suffering either. She was simply existing in a way that was different from what she was used to. "This world is very small," she said finally. "Everything here is small. Your buildings, your technology, even your thoughts are small. You care about plants, about gardens, about one person. The empire thinks about civilizations, about power, about the future of billions." David nodded. He did not argue with her. "I understand," he said, "but maybe small is not always bad. Maybe caring deeply about one garden helps you understand how to care for a world. Maybe understanding one person helps you understand billions." Did not respond to this, but she thought about it for a long time. Weeks passed. David continued his work, began to spend more time with him. He showed her the gardens. He explained how different plants grew. He played music in his living space, old earth music. He said the songs were hundreds of years old, but people still loved them, listened to the sounds and felt something in her chest that she could not name. One night she found herself laughing at something David said. It was a small moment, a small joke about a plant that refused to grow, but she laughed. It surprised her. She did not know humans could make her laugh. Then a message came. It was from her brother. The communication was urgent. There was a problem in the Empire. A threat was rising. The Dominion had begun their attack. They needed her. She needed to come home. Read the message 3 times. Her duty was clear. She had to leave. She had to return to her world and face this threat. But as she prepared her things, she found herself looking at the gardens below. And she found herself thinking about David. She found herself not wanting to leave. It was a feeling she did not expect. It was a feeling that complicated everything. The Empire was burning. Not literally, but it felt that way too as she returned to her world. The Dominion had attacked 3 major outposts. Ships were destroyed. Thousands of soldiers were dead. The military leadership was confused. They did not know why their advanced weapons were failing against the forces. Walked into the command center and the noise stopped. Every officer turned to look at her. She was the princess. She was strong. She was educated in military strategy. They needed her to save them. The commander of the fleet was named General. He had served the Empire for 40 years. He was tall and cold. He looked at without emotion. "They do not follow logical military patterns," he told her. "They attack in ways that seem random. They focus on killing soldiers rather than taking territory. They destroy ships that have no strategic value. It is not how war should be fought." "How do they choose their targets?" asked. "We do not know," General said. "That is the problem. They do not think like we do. Our strategies do not work against them." Studied the battle reports. She looked at the data from the attacks. Something was clear to her. They were not fighting a logical war. They were fighting a different kind of war. They were making choices based on something that was not pure strategy. She thought about David. She thought about how he had explained that humans did not control nature. They worked with it. They understood patterns. They understood how living things thought. 3 days later sent a message to Earth. It was a long message. In it, she explained the situation. She asked for David. She needed him to come to the Empire. She needed him to help. The response from Earth took time. The government officials did not want to send a human scientist to an alien war. It made no sense, but was a princess, was the one who had married David, had authority, and so they agreed. When David arrived at the command center, the officers stared at him. He was human. He was not a soldier. He was not a strategist. He was just a man in a simple uniform that did not fit his small frame. David looked at the battle data for 2 hours without speaking. He read the reports. He studied the attack patterns. He listened to officers explain what had happened. Then he spoke. "You are fighting them wrong," he said. His voice was quiet but clear. "You think war is about logic, about position, about taking control of space and resources, but they do not fight like that. They fight like a living thing fights. They make decisions based on emotion, based on pride, based on what their leaders value." General looked at David with anger. "We are not interested in philosophy, human. We are interested in winning." "Then listen," David said. "The attack targets that have no strategic value to you but high value to them. Why? Because they want to prove they are strong. They want to show their people that they can hurt you. They want to prove they are worthy warriors. This is not logical, but it is how they think." David pointed to a map. "Here, here, and here. These are the places they have attacked. They are not the strongest positions. They are the places where you would not expect an attack. Why? Because the leader wants to show that his soldiers can surprise you, that they can find weakness, that they are clever." One of the younger officers spoke up. "What does this tell us?" "It tells you that the leader cares about honor and pride," David said. "It tells you that he wants to be remembered as a great warrior. It tells you that he will not surrender as long as you are treating him like an enemy. But if you show him respect, if you show him that you understand his strength, then maybe you can make him listen." General stood up. "Are you suggesting we negotiate with murderers?" "I am suggesting you understand who you are fighting," David said. "They are not machines. They are not purely logical. They are driven by the same things that drive humans, by need, by honor, by the desire to protect their people. If you keep fighting them like enemies, they will keep fighting like warriors. But if you give them a way to stop that does not make them look weak, then they might listen." Watch this exchange. She saw the officers' faces change. They did not believe David, but something in his words made sense to them. The strategy they had been using was failing. What he described was worth trying. Over the next week, David worked with the military strategists. He explained human psychology. He explained how fear worked. He explained how pride could be used instead of destroyed. He told them stories about how humans negotiated with each other, how humans found ways to stop fighting without making anyone lose face. They began to understand. They began to see the war differently. Instead of trying to destroy they started to give them reasons to stop. A communication was sent to the Dominion. It was not an order, it was an invitation. It was a suggestion to talk, and surprisingly they responded. They agreed to negotiations. When David heard this, he felt something heavy in his chest. The strategy had worked, but now came the hard part. Someone had to actually speak to the face-to-face. Someone had to sit across from warriors who had killed thousands and find a way to make peace. Found David alone in his temporary quarters. He was looking at a window showing the stars beyond. "You did it," she said. "You found the way to make them listen." David turned to her. "I just explained what they were already doing. They are not evil, they are not illogical, they are just different, they think differently, they value things differently. Once you understand that, everything makes sense." "Will you talk to them?" asked. David did not answer immediately. He really looked at her. He saw the fear beneath her strength. He saw how much she had been carrying alone. "Yes," he said finally, "I will talk to them." Felt relief wash over her, and something else. Something she had not expected to feel for this ordinary human. She felt trust. She felt like maybe, just maybe, he could change everything. As David prepared for the negotiations that would come next, the officers finally began to see what had seen from the beginning. This human was not ordinary. He saw things that their advanced minds could not see. He understood patterns that their technology could not measure. and he had the courage to stand alone and speak truth to power. The quiet botanist from Earth had become their hope. The commander made a demand that made the officers angry. His name was and he had killed more than anyone else in his army. He said he would only negotiate with a human. He said humans were honest. He said humans could not hide their true feelings the way they could. General wanted to reject the demand immediately. It was a test, he said. It was a way for to show power. It was a trap. But David understood. The commander did not see humans as weak. He saw them as different. He saw them as honest in a way that beings with advanced technology could not be. He was choosing to meet with someone who could not trick him because tricks required a level of sophistication that David did not have. "I will go," David said. The reaction was immediate, stood up from her seat. Her voice was hard and clear. "No, this is not acceptable." "There is no other choice," David said. "He will not negotiate with anyone else. And if he will not negotiate, then thousands more will die. Humans, even, all because I was afraid." "You are not a soldier," said. "You have no training, you have never fought, you do not know what they are capable of." "I know exactly what they are capable of," David said. "I have read the reports. I know they are deadly. I know they are strong. I know they have honor codes that drive them. And I know that is why they will listen to me." Turned away. She did not want to watch him prepare. She did not want to see him walk into danger, but she could not stop him. David was given light protection, armor that was useless against weapons, but that made them feel like they had done something. He was given a transport that took him to a neutral meeting place in deep space, a station that belonged to neither the nor the, a place where negotiations could happen. Was waiting. He was enormous. His body was covered in dark skin that looked like leather. His eyes were black and intelligent. He had scars across his chest and arms. Each scar told a story of battle, of survival, of strength. When David walked into the meeting chamber, studied him for a long time. Then the commander spoke. "You are very small," he said. "In my culture, small means weak, but you came alone. That means you are either stupid or brave. Which is it, human?" "I do not know," David said. He did not try to hide his fear, had asked him to be honest. That was what he would be. "Maybe I am both, but I came because thousands of people are dying. Humans caught between you both. I came because I believe there is another way." Sat down. "Sit," he ordered. David sat. "Tell me about your world," said. "Tell me about Earth." David began to speak. He told the commander about Earth. He described the oceans and the mountains. He talked about the plants that grew in different environments. He explained how humans had survived on a planet that tried to kill them, how they had built civilizations, how they had made art and music and stories. "We are not like your people," David said. "We do not live for thousands of years. We live short lives, maybe 80 years, maybe 90. So we try to make our lives matter. We try to protect the people we love. We try to create things that last longer than we do." Listened. His expression did not change, but he listened. "I met your princess," David continued. "She did not want to come to Earth. She thought my world was primitive. She thought I was weak, but she came because it was her duty. That is what your people do, is it not? You do your duty. You protect what matters to you. That is why you fight. Not because you want power, but because you want to protect your people. I understand that. Humans do the same thing." "Then you understand why I cannot surrender," said. "My people would see it as weakness. They would lose respect for me. I would no longer be fit to lead." "I understand," David said. "But there are other ways to stop fighting that are not surrender. There are ways to end this where both sides are honored, where both sides are seen as strong." David spent the next hours talking to He did not argue. He did not try to convince. He simply explained what he understood about humans, about how they valued sacrifice and honor and standing by what they believed in. He told about warriors from Earth who had fought impossible battles, about soldiers who had died protecting people they did not know, about humans who had chosen death over betrayal. "Your people are the same," David said. "You fight because you believe in something. You are warriors because you choose to be. That is not weakness, that is strength." Stood up and walked away. For a moment, David thought he had failed. He thought the commander would order his death. But came back. He had papers with him, they were agreements. They outlined a path forward. They would withdraw. They would provide resources and territory. Both sides would benefit. Both sides would save their people. "This is possible," said. "I can present this to my people as a victory. A wise leader knows when the time for war has passed. I will be remembered as the one who created peace from war. That is stronger than being remembered as the one who fought forever." David felt a wave of relief so strong that he almost fell. He had done it. He had actually done it. When David returned to the command center, the officers stared at him. He looked different. Something had changed in him. His eyes had seen things that could not be unseen. He had stood face to face with death and chosen to speak instead of fight. Ran to him. She did not care who was watching. She did not care about protocol. She put her arms around him and held him tight. "You are alive," she said. "I am," David said, and he felt the weight of what he had done. He had prevented a war. He had saved millions of lives, but he had also changed himself. The ordinary botanist from Earth was no longer ordinary. He was someone who had the courage to walk into darkness and bring back light. That night, as David slept, sat beside him and watched him breathe. She thought about how wrong she had been about humans. She had thought they were weak. She had thought they were primitive. But this man had done something her greatest military minds could not do. He had made peace when everyone else wanted war. She understood now. Human strength was not measured in weapons or technology. It was measured in character, in the willingness to risk everything for others, in the ability to see the good in those who seemed like enemies. David was not ordinary. He never had been, had just not understood what extraordinary looked like. The peace agreement was signed 3 weeks later. Their forces, the provided resources and open trade routes. On the surface, everything looked like success, but beneath the surface, problems were growing like shadows. Some officers began to question David's true loyalty. They said he had spent too much time with They said he had negotiated agreements that favored the more than the empire. They said that because he was human, his thinking was not. His thinking could not be trusted. General started these rumors. He had wanted a military victory. He had wanted the destroyed. Instead, David had made peace. In his mind, David had betrayed the empire. One morning was called to the High Council. This was not unusual. She was a princess. She attended council meetings regularly. But when she entered the chamber, she felt something was wrong. The counselors looked at her with suspicion. The head counselor was an old man named. He had ruled the empire for 30 years. His voice was cold. "We have concerns about your husband," said. "His involvement with the peace agreement has been examined. We believe he may have influenced negotiations in favor of Felt anger rise in her chest. David saved millions of lives. The strategy that the empire's greatest minds could not create, he provided in days. He did not favor he understood them. "Exactly," said. "He understood them perhaps too well. Perhaps he identifies with them more than with us. He is human, we are not. His loyalty may not be to the empire. His loyalty is to peace," said. "His loyalty is to stopping death. Is that not the highest form of loyalty to any civilization?" Stood up. "You are biased because you are married to him. The council has decided. David Harper will be monitored. He will not be permitted to participate in any further military decisions, and he will not be permitted to leave the planet without permission." Wanted to argue. She wanted to fight this decision. But she knew the council was too powerful. She knew that if she pushed them too hard, they would turn against both David and her. She left the chamber and went to find David. He was in the gardens, the place where he always went when he needed to think. "The council has made their decision," told him. She explained what it said. She explained the restrictions. She explained that some of the highest members of the empire did not trust him. David listened without reacting. When she finished, he simply nodded. "I expected this," he said. "People always fear what they do not understand. I am human. I think differently. I make decisions based on different values. Of course they do not trust me." "This is not fair," said. "You saved them." "No," David said. "I saved them from a war they did not want. That is different, and it threatened some of them. General wanted to prove that military strength was superior. I proved that understanding was superior. That is something many people will never forgive." Meanwhile, on Earth, other problems were developing. Some human governments were angry that David had been used to negotiate with an alien species. They said he had chosen the over humanity. They said his success made look superior to humans. They said he was a traitor to his own people. David received messages from Earth leaders demanding to know why he had negotiated agreements that benefited why he had not protected human interests, why he had worked against his own species. David was trapped between two worlds. Neither one trusted him. Both worlds had decided that he was a threat because he saw beyond the boundaries of species and power. Could see what this was doing to him. She could see the weight of it. She decided she would defend him publicly. She would make a statement to the council that left no room for doubt about her commitment. She requested a public hearing. The council agreed, thinking she would finally acknowledge that her husband was a problem. Instead, stood before the entire government and spoke words that changed everything. "David Harper is not," she said. "His blood is not our blood. His mind does not work like ours, but that does not make him disloyal. It makes him valuable. When our greatest minds could not find a solution, he found it. When our strongest warriors could not bring peace, he brought it. And yes, he had to understand but understanding an enemy is not the same as betraying your own side." Walked forward. "I chose to marry David Harper not because of political duty. I chose because I recognized something in him that we lack. I recognized wisdom. I recognized courage. I recognized a willingness to sacrifice everything for people he did not even know. That is not weakness. That is what I would call the greatest strength." She turned directly to, "If you punish David, you punish the one person who has made you stronger. You punish the one person who has made peace possible. And you prove that the empire values loyalty to power more than loyalty to truth." The council was silent. His face was angry, but he could not speak. The people in the gallery were watching. They had heard his words. They understood that she was not going to back down. But that night, everything changed. An extremist group within the military decided to take matters into their own hands. They saw David as a threat to power. They decided he had to die. Assassins came to the compound where David was staying, was with him. When the attack came, she did not hesitate. She stood in front of David and drew her weapon. She shot the first assassin. She shot the second. She stood there with her back to David, protecting him, while he realized that this woman would actually die for him. The assassins retreated, but the message was clear. David was not safe. Even with support, even with the council's official protection, people would continue to try to kill him. Held David in the dark. "I will not let them hurt you," she said. "I would burn the empire down before I would let that happen." David held her tight. "I know." The next morning came to them with a proposal. The council had decided that David would be given a new role. He would be the director of a new organization, the Peace Foundation. He would work to foster understanding between all species in the region. He would have authority. He would have protection. And he would have resources to do what he believed in. It was a solution that gave everyone what they wanted. David was given legitimacy. The council was given a way to control him by giving him a purpose, and was given the assurance that her husband would not be executed for his beliefs. But most importantly, it was a solution that recognized the truth. David Harper was not ordinary, and the Empire, despite its advanced technology and ancient power, needed what he represented. They needed his humanity. They needed his way of seeing the universe. They needed him. 1 year later, David Harper stood in front of representatives from 12 different species. They had gathered at the Peace Foundation headquarters on a space station that orbited between the Empire and Territory. The station was built by both civilizations working together. Every section showed the cooperation of two species that had been enemies just months before. David was no longer a botanist from Earth. He was the director of the Peace Foundation. He was recognized across multiple star systems. He had been offered positions of power that would have made him wealthy beyond imagination. He had turned them all down. What he wanted was to build something that lasted, something that would prevent wars, something that would help different species understand each other. Stood beside him. She was his equal now, in title and in every other way. She had given up some of her authority in the government to work full-time at the foundation. Her family had been shocked by her decision, but had realized something important. Power over an empire meant little compared to power to change how civilizations thought about each other. "Today, we launch the Cultural Exchange Program," David said to the gathering. "For the first time, young people from different species will live together. They will learn each other's languages. They will study each other's histories. They will eat each other's food. They will understand that we are not so different as we believe." The representatives applauded. Some of them had opposed the program. They said it was dangerous to let their young people spend time with other species. But David had explained that fear was born from lack of understanding, and lack of understanding was born from isolation. The only cure was connection. After the ceremony, David walked through the station's main garden. It was David's favorite place. The garden was like nothing in nature. It contained plants from Earth and plants from and plants from 4 other species' home planets. They grew together. Some of them were supposed to be enemies. Their natural environments were hostile to each other, but in this garden they thrived. A young human diplomat named approached them. She had been working at the foundation for 6 months. She had come from Earth hopping to make a difference. "Director Harper," she said, "I have a negotiation coming up with the Empire. They have asked for resources that seem unreasonable. I do not know how to respond without sounding weak." David smiled. He remembered when he did not know these things either. He remembered when all of this seemed impossible. "What do you think they really want?" he asked. "Thought about this. It is not about the resources. They want to be acknowledged as equals. They want to know that other species see them as important." "Exactly," David said. "So give them that first. Acknowledge their importance. Tell them specifically why you value their place in this region. Then negotiate the resources from a position of mutual respect, not competition." Nodded. She understood. She had learned something that no book could have taught her. She had learned how to think like David thought, how to see beyond the words to understand what was really being asked. As walked away, took David's hand. "You have changed so much," she said. "Do you remember that first day on Earth? I thought you were insignificant. I thought your work with plants was meaningless." David laughed. "I remember. You were the most beautiful alien I had ever seen, and you were also the most judgmental." "I was not wrong about the beautiful part," said. She was smiling now. It was a different kind of smile than the formal expression she had worn when they first married. This smile was real. This smile was filled with affection. They walked through the garden in silence. The plants around them grew in patterns that David had designed. Each section represented a different philosophy about growth and harmony. The Earth section emphasized natural chaos. Things grew in whatever way worked best. The section was perfectly organized. Every plant was in its place. Every pattern was intentional. But where the sections met, something new happened. The plants influenced each other. They grew in ways that were better than either approach alone. David had created this garden as a metaphor, as a living example of what he believed about civilization, that different species could live together, that their differences could make them stronger, not weaker, that understanding was more powerful than weapons. That evening they returned to their private quarters. It was a small space, but it was comfortable. David had filled it with plants from Earth, had added decorations from her home world. The space was a mix of two worlds. It was a home that belonged to both of them. They sat together looking out at the stars. This was their routine now. Every night they would sit here and talk about their day. David would ask about the political complications was managing, would listen to David's plans for expanding the Peace Foundation to other regions of space. "I received a message from my brother today," said. "The Empire is becoming a model for other governments. They are following our example. They are establishing their own peace programs." "That is good," David said. "Peace is not something that happens because one person makes it happen. It happens when entire civilizations change their way of thinking." "And you have changed how an entire civilization thinks," said. David shook his head. "I just showed them what they already knew. That understanding is more valuable than conquest. That cooperation makes you stronger than competition. I did not invent these ideas. Every human child learns them. I just reminded species that had forgotten them." The next morning, David received a message from Earth. It was from the human government. They were offering him a position. They wanted him to return home. They wanted him to be an ambassador to the entire galaxy. It was the honor that every human dreamed of. It was the recognition of his importance. It was the validation of everything he had accomplished. But David knew that his work was not done. The Peace Foundation needed him. The future they were building needed him. He turned down the offer. Instead, he went back to his work. He continued to build the programs that would help young people from different species understand each other. He continued to mentor people who wanted to make peace instead of war. He continued to walk through the gardens he had created, tending them like he had once tended plants on Earth. One day, a young warrior came to him. The warrior was the son of the commander who had agreed to peace. The son had been part of the cultural exchange program. He had lived alongside humans and he had learned their languages. He had studied their histories. "I came to thank you," the young said. "My father told me about the peace you made. I did not understand what you had done when I was young, but now I do. You gave my people a future that was not built on war." David put his hand on the young warrior's shoulder. "Your people gave themselves that future. I only showed them it was possible." As the warrior walked away, David felt the weight of his years catch up with him. He was older now. His hair had gray in it. His face was weathered. He did not have the physical strength he once had, but he had something else. He had the respect of multiple civilizations. He had changed the course of history. And he had found something more valuable than all of that. He had found love. He had found purpose. He had found a reason to believe that different creatures could come together and build something better than anything they could have built alone. That night, as David and lay together, she asked him if he regretted giving up Earth. She asked if he missed his home world. David thought about the gardens of Colorado. He thought about the simple life he had lived before the princess arrived. He thought about what he had given up. But then he looked at the garden they had created. He looked at the foundation they were building. He looked at the future they were making possible. "No," he said, "I did not give up my home. I found a bigger one. I found a home that belongs to all species, and I found someone to share it with." The stars shone bright outside their window. Somewhere out there, young people from different species were working together. Were learning from each other. Were building a future that their grandparents would never have thought possible. It had started with one human, one alien princess, and the willingness to believe that understanding could be more powerful than fear. That was how the galaxy began to change, one person at a time, one choice at a time, one act of courage at a time. And it all started because a princess thought her husband was ordinary, until the day he showed her that the most extraordinary strength comes not from weapons or technology, but from the human heart.